back, horror fans, and I do apologize that this is the first full-length video I'm dropping this month due to the fact that I fractured my jaw. I have been just focusing mostly on my main channel, but we're going to be getting back to normal Sunday drops like we've been doing prior to that. And one of the things I want to talk about today is probably my favorite topic in all of horror, and that is A Nightmare on Elm Street. Now, about a year ago, June 26, 2022 to be exact, I did a video where Jason Blum was doing promotion for Black Phone. Now, Black Phone was a really sleeper hit for Blumhouse, and Blumhouse has been on quite a tear. And during that interview, Jason Blum said that he thought he could get Robert Englund back for one last film. Now, since then, Robert's pretty much said, no, I don't really want to do Freddy for a full film. And that led me to many different thoughts, and I've been thinking about this video for about 3 weeks now and how I wanted to present the information. And the first thing is, I think you could get Robert back to do a 5-minute open. Why just 5 minutes? Well, one, he's going to take an entire day to do filming, he's going to take an entire day to do makeup, and let's be honest, you know, Robert's pushing 80 and doesn't want to do it anymore. You bring him back just for one scene. Now, why would you bring him back for one scene? The simple reason is you bring back Lisa Wilcox as well. And for those who don't know who she is, that is the Dream Master herself, Alice from 4 and 5. And basically, she was never defeated. She was technically defeated in the comics. She was killed off in the comics. And you kind of see a Lisa Wilcox, Alice-like body in A New Nightmare. But she never canonically has been killed. So what you do is simple. You have to pull Freddy from A Nightmare on Elm Street. And there's a reason why. Yes, he is the character. He is the main villain. He is the antagonist of A Nightmare on Elm Street. But you can't have Freddy anymore in Nightmare on Elm Street. And they've proven that with Jackie Earle Haley's reboot. And we'll talk about that in just a minute, but first I'm going to focus on why Lisa Wilcox and Robert Englund are so important. It sets up this possibility for Alice to finally defeat Freddy Krueger and end his reign of terror and dreams amongst the kids of Elm Street all over the place. And if you do that, Robert can have that final send-off. You get that wonderful closure with Robert. You get to see him one last time, cutting some lines, and then you have someone else do the stand-in for all the motion work, and you get rid of Freddy Krueger forever. Not kidding about that. I think A Nightmare on Elm Street needs to move past Freddy Krueger. And now here's the reason why. And we were starting to talk about Jackie just a little bit. I am a huge Jackie Earle Haley fan. I think he's amazing in most things he's done, and single-handedly carried Zack Snyder's Watchmen on his back. But the problem is no one can do Freddy like Robert does Freddy. It's the same thing as you can't replace Bruce Campbell as Ash because no one could do Ash like Bruce does Ash. And there will always be that measuring stick no matter how you want to cut it, and no one will ever come close to it. Robert Englund is an absolute master class in horror comedy and took Freddy to a level that Wes Craven never really envisioned. He said that before. He kind of allowed Robert to have a lot of free reign in how he handled Freddy Krueger's lines, delivery, and made Freddy his own. The evolution we saw from Freddy in A Nightmare on Elm Street 1 to where it was when it ended was just a magical run of character creation and metamorphoses. But you can't do that anymore. You can't bring Robert back and have him do 7 more Nightmare on Elm Street films. That's never going to happen. So you need to remove Freddy from A Nightmare on Elm Street. Now, fortunately, there isn't any real rights discrepancies. We all know what the Cravens, we all know what New Line own for A Nightmare on Elm Street. It's much like where we're at now with the Friday the 13th, and we see Friday the 13th stuff started. We know that Friday is moving forward. Crystal Lake should probably drop on Peacock sometime around October of this year. There's rumors that Jason has a new movie, a new video game, and possibly even a DVD drop coming relatively shortly. Like, they're moving forward with Friday the 13th. We've seen the trilogy of new Halloween movies, and now the unholy triumvirate needs a return of A Nightmare on Elm Street. Now, the reason I brought up Lisa Wilcox finishing off Freddy is it allows the Dream Demons to go forth and find a new host. They need to move on from Freddy Krueger completely. You can't reboot him. It's been shown. Jackie failed miserably. The new reboot franchise immediately crashed and burned. And I even like Kyle Gaynor as Quentin, but there's just nothing you can do with that. It's just not going to happen. So what you need to do is basically go back to the beginning. You need to requel of this. Lisa, take Robert, do that closing scene, and then you never hear from either one again. Alice can go on, no longer having to bear the weight of being the Dream Master versus Freddy. Robert can retire, and we all get that last closing feeling. But the question is where they go from there. Well, you can do one of two ways. You could make it an anthology where the dream demons kind of bring someone new into the fold every time. And you can always make it a Nightmare on Elm Street. Let's be honest, Freddy said it himself.
Come on.
The shelter.
Time to start all over again.
But this isn't Springwood!
Every town has an Elm Street.
That's right, every town has an Elm Street. Let's be honest, there's Elm Streets across the world. You could have a brand new nightmare every movie, or you could set it up where you have a new nightmare every couple of films, where you could set it up with whether it's a pairing of films or a trilogy with that particular nightmare before you move on to a whole new cast, and Nightmare on Elm Street can go on forever. Now, if I had to choose one person to kick off a brand new trilogy of a Nightmare on Elm Street movies, I have one person that I've thought about this for about a year, since I did that original video from Jason Blum. And that is James McAvoy. And you're going to ask me why McAvoy? Because, first of all, I think we need to transition to someone that kind of has a similar appearance, body-wise, height-wise, frame-wise, to Robert Englund's Freddy Krueger. Yes, they're going to be different, but you don't want to go so different that it feels jarring to the audience. So you want someone that has a very similar frame. Now, we did see how James McAvoy can do in horror films. He did great at M. Night Shyamalan's Split, and then, of course, in Glass, he came back and reprised that multiple personality character that eventually became the Beast, the main villain. And you see a lot of potential with McAvoy. Also, he's got such a wide range. He's played everything from the main dopey character in Wanted, who then turns into an expert assassin, to Professor Xavier. Like, McAvoy's been everywhere. He has massive range. You can set it up with a brand new movie in somewhere else in the UK for a change. Get away from the American Elm Street, go to a more European Elm Street. You do a couple of films with James McAvoy, and at the end of that, you kill him off too and go to a new nightmare. And that is what it needs to be if you want to keep a Nightmare on Elm Street fresh. You want to keep movies coming. And let's be honest, it's worked so well for Ghostface. There's been 6 movies now, and not a single Ghostface has been the same. I love what they do with Ghostface. Every time there's a new one, Michael kind of showed why the shape should have shifted, and Halloween Ends. It's time to shift Freddy Krueger away from a Nightmare on Elm Street and let that franchise, which has been so good for so many years, really thrive again in the 2020s. And I think it's time that we need a Nightmare on Elm Street back. Now, let me know, who would you choose as the next Nightmare? What do you think of all these thoughts? Let me know in the comments below. As always, thank you for watching, and you stay groovy.